welcome back. Two siblings, one anxious, one overachieving, sounds like my whole life, neither ready for the war that's coming. In a thrilling new young adult fantasy series, The War of Mortal Blood readers are plunged into a hidden kingdom where blood isn't just vital, it's powerful. Here to discuss more is author Harold Hodge Jr. Harold, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk about this. I'm a huge reader and I love a good book, so I'm so excited to speak about this one. Before we even kick things off, show the readers the book. This cover is beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yes, The War of Mortal Blood, now available.
Awesome. So tell me, what sparked the idea for the Mortal Blood series and how has this world been living in your imagination?
So the story actually began very similar to the way the book begins. My family went on a trip to Europe when I was like 15, and we got horribly lost. We were in the car for such a long time, and I have several younger siblings. So we didn't have phones at the time, so I was entertaining them. So I started making up this story just to like pass the time. And as hours went on of us being lost, I got pretty far in this story, and I was like, okay, I kind of like what I made up there, and started to write it down. And I wrote a version of this when I was 15, and then the pandemic hit in 2020, and of course we had nothing but time. So I stumbled upon this old draft when I was 15, and I was very intrigued by the fact that I had this like time capsule of, I feel like a lot of authors, when writing young adult, you're trying to recapture what you feel as a youth, but what was great was it was this like time capsule of those actual feelings I had at the time and that actual teen voice. So I was like, oh, this is great. I wanted to expand upon that as an adult, looking back in hindsight, and really dig into some of those feelings I was feeling at the time when writing it. So yeah, that was really the inspiration, being in Europe, seeing all these grand castles, making up the story for my siblings, and it really took off from there.
What a good use of your time.
Yes.
I would have sat there scrolling the whole time. Amazing. But in the book, Jalen and Emma are complete opposites. So how did you develop this sibling dynamic, and what do readers take away from it, or what do you want them to take away from it?
So I was very inspired by my actual relationship with my stepsister. I was very driven to give us that representation because, for those who didn't see on the cover, they look very different from each other. And we grew up always feeling different and othered because we are siblings of different races. So we would always get stares, we'd always get questions. People would be like, what's going on here? We've even had people, like follow us and be like, is she okay? I'm like, girl, she's my little sister. In that Europe trip, we actually got trapped there a little while because they were like, we need y'all to send like her birth certificate, because we're like, is she really? Yeah, it was like a whole thing. So I say all that to say, what really inspired that relationship is I wanted to give us that representation to feel seen for other step siblings from different cultures and backgrounds. So that was like the base. I really wanted to create characters that physically looked like us. But then I also really wanted to explore what it's like to be young today. And like I said, I had those feelings that I wrote when I was 15, that anxiety of like, okay, college is coming up. I need to figure out what I want to do with my life. And that's a big question to ask a teenager, like, what track are you setting for the rest of your life? And people were asking me that from like freshman year, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? So I really wanted to give a voice to that anxiety, when at the same time give representation to people from blended families, blended cultures as well, and giving people of color that representation as well, to be leads in the story and not just, the helpful sidekick or the comedic relief.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned about college. I always think it's so weird, like looking back as an adult now, I'm like, we're like 15-year-olds, like
Yes.
determine the rest of their life. I understand the anxiety, like I get it. So in the book, Jalen struggles with anxiety and avoidance while Emma is consumed by structure and control. So what inspired you to explore these different traits in the teen protagonist, and is that, a reflection of your sibling dynamic?
So funnily enough, me and my real sister were the opposite. Because it's fiction, I wanted to like stray away from us a bit, so I put our characteristics in a blender and really like split them in the characters. But I would say we're actually the opposite, where my sister was the one who was like really trying to figure out what I want to do. And then she eventually decided maybe college isn't for me at all, which was a big decision to come up with, because my family was very like, high school, college, there's no choice. Whereas I was like, I want to go to college in New York, X, Y, and Z. I decided very early on at 15, because people were asking me so often, I decided early on, also because I was on the honor roll, you know, people are always, you're getting letters in the mail once you get like high test scores and stuff. So I was, okay, I have to decide. So yeah, it was very much the opposite. But I really thought it was interesting, our relationship, how we had those opposite dynamics, because it's like, oh, well, you have it all figured out. I'm like, I really don't. It made it look like that I'm panicking on the inside. And I thought that was a very interesting dynamic to explore as siblings, because of course you have this comparing to each other, but then you see what's going on internally, which the book is split between POV. We jump back and forth between the brother and sister. So we have that dynamic where they think the other sibling is feeling one way, but then we as the reader see that that's not what's going on underneath. So that was really one of the things I wanted to explore.
Right, and on top of that, you also explore this unique concept of blood as a source of magical power. So can you explain how that works in this world, and what does it symbolize?
So, oh, sorry. And the way it works in the world is that if you are any type of magical being mixed with mortal blood, that it strengthens the power. And it's something, so in this world, mortals who are basically normal humans are not allowed to have children with magical beings. And of course, some family secrets are unveiled, which reveals that they are these children of mixed blood and mixed lineage. And as far as what that symbolizes, having grown up again in mixed cultures, and I also grew up abroad as a military kid, this idea of just culture and blood and what comes with your culture and the power and your heritage and your history was something that was very important to me, which was very explored in this very heightened way. But yeah, that was really what it came down to, this just idea of culture and what the power in your history and the power in what courses through your veins.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the book touches on the topics that we mentioned, so like mental health, anxiety, perfectionism. Now, while the book is a fantasy world, tell me, why did you feel the need to intertwine these very real world problems, so to speak, into this world?
I feel like that's what makes the book work so well, because you have these high stakes of like, oh, we're literally, our lives are on the line, we're fighting for our lives. But then they have the very real teenage issues at the same time. Emma is dealing with her anxiety. She has a therapist, and she's constantly now having to use what the therapist taught her when she's having panic attacks, because people are like literally shooting magic at her. So it's like heightens everything. So it just works so well together for me as a writer, because it heightens all the stakes. Dealing with coming of age and dealing with your identity, of course, is going to be heightened when you're like, oh, not only am I, growing as a teenager, but now I'm finding out I have magical power. So everything is heightened, especially with mental health as well. Emma has had panic attacks in the past, and of course, that's being heightened with now. She has really a hard time, as we hear her intrusive thoughts, and she has a harder time dealing with those, because she has always used logic as her like anchor, and that's what her therapist taught her, to anchor. But of course, now that people can fly and shoot magic out of their hands, logic is out of the window. So yeah, it just felt like putting things in this fantasy world, it made all the stakes higher for all these characters, with dealing with their mental health, also dealing with themselves, also really finding their way back together as a family, because they find out so much secrets have been buried. So yeah, I felt that it really raised the stakes, even with just their normal teenage problems. Of course, they have like their love interest that they find, and of course that stakes are higher there when your love interest may not live. So it's a lot going on, and I feel like a war just raises those stakes,
A lot going on, but this sounds like such a fun young adult novel. So with that, Harold, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So for more information, you can visit their Instagram at Mortal Blood Series. We have more open. Don't go anywhere.